It started with a sandwich. Well, it probably started with some feelings of hunger leading to, checking the refrigerator to see what was available, which led, in this case, to a grilled cheese sandwich. One day in 1994, Diana Dicer absent-mindedly took the first bite of her lunch, but as she brought the sandwich to her mouth for a second bite, she stopped. I could see a woman's face staring back at me from my sandwich, she explained. And on closer examination, lo and behold, Miss Dicer determined this was not just any woman's face on her grilled cheese. It was Mary, the mother of Jesus. Now, there are some conflicting details moving forward, depending which news source you most trust. Specifically, whether Miss Dicer put her sandwich in the freezer for safekeeping, or whether she stationed it in a clear plastic box with some cotton balls for padding and put the whole thing in her nightstand. To its credit, this latter version does suggest a bit of a double miracle because the sandwich evidenced no particular signs of mold when it was sold on eBay 10 years later for $28,000. Really? I was reminded of this story as I did what we'll call light research on the subject of miracles in preparation for this sermon. I discovered Mary has quite a knack for showing up when you least expect her. Michael O'Neill, author of the book Exploring the Miraculous, suggests that the most popular, most prevalent miracles are these Marian apparitions. By his count, Mary has appeared in either a supernatural or a corporeal way over 2,500 times in recorded history. And when she appears, she typically has a message for those who find her. I'm not quite sure what the message was in the grilled cheese, but it occurred to me how grateful I am that Mary showed up at that wedding at Cana in Galilee. John, the gospel writer, mentions her only by her relationship to Jesus, not by her name, but it's Mary, the mother of Jesus. She only makes 2 appearances in the whole Gospel of John. She's at the foot of the cross with Jesus at his crucifixion, and she shows up here at a wedding where we get our first taste of what Jesus can do and what he's capable of, where he performs his first miracle, his sign. And thank goodness Mary was there that day, because there might not have been a miracle if she wasn't. It's Mary who notices something's not right at that wedding. They have no wine. Notice how clearly she states it, how matter-of-factly. Her observation does not appear to be tinged with complaint, criticism, or judgment, as in, this is a terrible wedding in a blankety-blank town. What should I expect but for there to be no wine? She does not appear to be melodramatic or self-serving in any way, as in, they have no wine, what am I supposed to drink? It's simply an observation of fact, an observation that something is lacking. And at a wedding in those days, quite possibly a 7-day-long celebration, if the host ran out of wine that early in the course of things, the host would never have lived it down, and neither would the bride and groom. It was a matter of hospitality, a matter of honor, to provide for your guests at an affair such as this. A matter of honor, almost a civic responsibility, maybe we could call it a moral duty, to make life joyful for others. Mary could have been judgmental or critical or self-serving, but she wasn't. She notices something is wrong, and she sends a message. They have no wine. What happens next is a little bit unexpected for those of us who think we know who Jesus is. He seems resistant somehow. Woman, what concern is that of yours? In other words, what difference does it make? What does it matter? And then he even tells her he's not sure it's his time. Not time yet? That sounds familiar, doesn't it? We hear that a lot from people in positions of power, even in our own time. It's not time yet to have a conversation about access to assault weapons, even though our country sees more gun-related violence than we should. It's not time for everybody to have access to affordable health care. It's not time to adequately fund public schools. It's not time to let just anyone from any country into ours. It's not time. Tomorrow, many of us will observe Martin Luther King Jr. Day, perhaps by attending a remembrance of some sort, or rereading some of his words, or maybe taking time to serve or volunteer in the community. Dr. King knew a little something about timing. His letter from a Birmingham jail was written in response to another letter that some white clergy published in the local paper, suggesting King and others take a step back from all of their protesting to let things settle down a little bit. It's not time, they said. Why don't you wait? But Dr. King would hear none of it, writing back to them, "For years now I have heard the word wait, and this wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see," he says, "that justice too long delayed is justice denied. And there comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. There comes a time, and it takes the eyes of someone who can see what's keeping people from joy, from wholeness, from fullness of life, and the voice of someone unwilling to let that go, for change to happen and for a miracle to unfold." Back at that wedding at Cana, Mary heard what Jesus said, that it wasn't time, but she pushed right past that hint of hesitation, that moment of reluctance, and set things in motion. And in no time at all, a whole lot of water turns into a whole lot of wine, and not just any wine, the really good stuff. It's a miracle that might not have happened if Mary hadn't spoken up, if Mary hadn't stayed the course, when even Jesus needed a little convincing that the timing was right for things to change for the better. If Mary had allowed herself to get bogged down in arguments over why it mattered and what a good time might be for change to happen. It's Jesus who makes the magic happen, but I'm awfully glad Mary's there. To be honest, I've been looking a little more closely at my grilled cheese sandwiches lately, hoping she might show up here too. Mary, or really anyone with a voice compelling enough to set into motion some kind of a positive difference in our world. Have you been hoping for a miracle too? Sometimes when I hear the kind of language that gets thrown around so effortlessly and unapologetically these days, by people who should really know better, first of all, much less set a better example, I don't know what to say in response. And it's not just the language itself, it's the sentiment underneath it, that some people are somehow better than others because of their religious beliefs, because of the place they come from, let's be frank, because of the color of their skin. I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to preach, because it just seems so clear to me that the gospel message is diametrically opposed to that. And I keep hoping for a miracle to make this nonsense go away so that we can just all get down to the business of living together peaceably in this beautiful, diverse, colorful world of God's design. Maybe that's naive, but that's where I'm at, praying for change, hoping for a miracle, and wondering when God is going to get down to business and make something happen. But then on Friday, as I was immersed in all kinds of blogs and posts and videos, I saw in response to this latest too distracting, too time-consuming war about words, an op-ed in the New York Times by Roxane Gay, a Haitian American, who not only extolled the virtues of her ancestral home and its people, she said something so simple and obvious and true that I almost skipped right over it. She said, "No one is coming to save us. No one is coming to save us from the work that clearly still needs to be done, or the conversation we continue to need to have about race and inequality and diversity and justice and inclusion. No one is coming to save us from that hard work. I'm pretty sure she means that work is ours to do. Because that's the real question, isn't it? Not when someone else is going to change his tune, but what you and I can do to make a difference for someone else. How long will we wait to make others experience joy, to make abundance a reality for our neighbors? Dr. King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And I doubt he had any question at all about when we're supposed to do that. I don't know if you good Protestants are aware of this or not, but as people who call ourselves followers of Christ, there's this sort of understanding that you and I actually believe in miracles or signs, which sounds a little bit sci-fi, some little hocus pocus sometimes, especially when we get all caught up in trying to figure out how something happens, instead of keeping our hearts centered on why these things happen. Jesus is born into our world, and we might not quite have all the details figured out about that, but we know for sure it takes the willing heart of Mary and the grace of Joseph and a whole lot of other characters who enter and exit that story. There's angels and shepherds and stars and kings, and there's a lot we maybe don't know, a lot that can't be rationally explained, but could we at least agree his life was a gift to us from a God who loves all of us so much that God chose to get that close to us? And then there's the empty tomb at the other end of the story. Again, we might not have all the mechanics down about that, but as people of a particular faith, that event is a part of who we are. Those who say we believe new life is possible and that death never has the last word. So we could easily get caught up in a conversation this morning about how all that water got turned into wine, as if chemistry or magical illusion were our subject matter for the day. But that's a distraction. When Mary says matter-of-factly, they have no wine, it's not the wine that's the issue, it's the they have no that's the real problem. They have no wine actually seems a pretty minor thing compared to they have no rights, they have no food, or not enough, or they have no place to live, or they have no country to call their own, or they have no recourse, or they have no justice, or they have no hope. Do we really need Mary to tell us what's missing? Is there something wrong with our eyes, or with our voices, or with our faith? When I say we're supposed to believe in miracles, I'm not talking about apparitions in your whole wheat, or even those blessed events like finding your lost car keys or avoiding that deer on the road, although if that happened for you, I'm really happy for you. The miracle, the sign from God revealed at Cana in Galilee, is about how God intends to work through the world through Jesus. God knows there's something missing in our lives and in our world. God realizes we've run short of the stuff that makes for joy and welcome and celebration and inclusion and honor and dignity and hope. And God works through others who see what's missing and aren't afraid to say it and name it and then upset anybody else's time schedule to do something about it. And God works through us when we decide to speak and live a truth rooted in what we believe is possible, what we know is possible because of our faith. Miracles happen when we do the right thing, when we set the stage for abundance to overflow, and when we understand how much joy there can be when everyone gets a chance to share in the celebration of life and love that is God's realm. Mother Mary may have shown up 2,500 times in the course of history, but I believe miracles happen every day, or at least they can, when we understand the value of our voice, of our faith, of our time, used and spent, so God can be about God's work in our world. Amen.